Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Reclaiming Happiness with me, Sandeep Neutron. I've I'm really excited today. We have a distinguished guest um, in our show. We have a Master Sommelier uh, from United States joining in. For some of our listeners who do not know what a Master Sommelier is, just to give you a perspective, there are 269 Master Sommeliers worldwide, and less than 200, 172 as part of the American chapter. It is the highest degree. He was a Master Sommelier in 1991 with tremendous experience in hospitality, holding all top level jobs. Um, he was a general manager for one of the acclaimed restaurant, um, Gotham Bar and Grill, for almost 10 years. And Gotham Bar and Grill was the hottest place, one of the hottest places in New York City, with three consecutive New York Times star. Um, he then, among many jobs, positions he held, also as general manager at Tavern on the Green, top level jobs in hospitality. He also has a MBA in finance, besides being a master sommelier from the prestigious Stern School of Business at New York University. From New York University, he then hold the position of Dean of Wine Studies at the International Culinary Center (ICC) in NYC for 9 consecutive years, from 2012 and 2020. A prolific academic, great human being, amazing uh, person, hospitalian. I'm running out of words to describe him. I'm really honored, as a matter of fact, that he accepted this offer to speak with me in my podcast. Without further ado, please allow me to welcome one and only one. We have MS Scott Carney from New York City. Scott, thank you so much for coming in. Again, accepting to speak with me. I'm going to cherish this uh, podcast and this interview forever.
Oh, well, that's very
Welcome.
nice. That's very nice of you. It's great to hear your voice. And after a little bit, it's again nice to see your face on the screen here. And as I say, looking forward to the chance to talk together.
Thank you. Scott, the podcast, just a little recap about the podcast. We tend to talk about happiness and well-being. I really thought after returning back to Nepal, I really felt this well-being topic sometimes could be understated. It's not as talked as much as we want to. So this is the whole idea of this podcast. Would you be able to take us back to your childhood, one of your favorite memories in your childhood?
I guess one of the great memories that I have, I'm a little bit older, but I'm one of six. I have an older sister, and then I have four younger brothers. And, one of the great expeditions that my father took us on, he was a great family man, was when I was about, I guess, 14 years old. And he decided to put the entire family in our station wagon. And he took us out during the summer after school was out to Chicago, where I had aunts, both are who in the medical profession. And we left our car with them, and he put us on a train, which he was telling us was no longer going to ride out to the West Coast from Chicago. I think it was called like the Silver Bullet or something of the sort. But it was sort of a double height train, so you could go up into sort of the top area, which was all glassed out, and you could just look out at our country. And we set out from Chicago and went through the Rocky Mountains and all, making our way ultimately out to Oakland, which was the destination of the train. And it was just an incredible kind of family adventure. We were able, being old enough to kind of move about the cabins, to kind of run a little free or run a little wild on the train. And there were, no end to the fascinations and the buying of a little candy and things, and just looking at the country, which was just a wonderful, wonderful thing. So it's one of the things for which I thank my dad greatly, for having sort of had that idea to bring the family and let them see the country. And once we got out to Oakland, we made our way down the coast to Anaheim, where there was the obligatory stop at Disneyland, of course. And I just remember all the different things that happened along the way, but just a wonderful family trip, on which I look back fondly.
That's a vivid description, awesome description you gave it to me. Now I think your role is transferred. You had two amazing kids, right? Milo
And Theo.
Theo. There's gonna come a time when Milo and Theo is gonna share stories, including where you are there and Melanie is gonna be there. I think the roles been transferred as now you as a dad, right, Scott?
That's right. Well, if I could make a comparison to what my dad did, the trip that I thought so important for me and my children was one wine related, of course, but they were at about the same age, I think 14 and 10. And I took them to Spain, and we flew and stayed in Barcelona for a number of days. We went to in Spain, like Easter goes on for it seems weeks. So some things were closed, but Jorge Ordonez of Tempranillo Imports was able to get Isaac Muga out of bed and show us around at Vegas Muga, and we saw a couple of other places as well. But the trip continued on to Bilbao, where we saw the Frank Gehry Museum, and there was the big installation of Jeff Koons called Puppy, which was a huge puppy made out of flowers. And then we stayed in San Sebastian, and it was a trip that coincided with my children's birthdays, March 30th and April 2nd. So we highlighted the trip with a visit to a 3-star Michelin restaurant called Arzak, which again was very memorable. And I'm hoping that as they grow older, they'll look back very fondly on the meal, the visits, the shoes we bought them, and all the little details that made the trip so memorable to me. And as I say, I liken it to what my dad was able to do when I was around the same age.
Was it your conscious effort of trying to give that memory? It's just like your dad gave it to you, to them, or was it
a little more impromptu? I don't think I want to make too close a correlation, but sort of in principle or in the abstract, I wanted the kids to have memories at a particular time in their life. And so we traveled also. And it just was opportune that I was at a particular place where I could access, importers and all to give me some sort of inside visits and all. And they came along for the ride. But, Barcelona was absolutely fantastic. And I think they have very good memories about the trip.
And 23rd March today. So it looks like 1 week from now, we have their birthday. You said March
the
30th
first one.
April 2nd.
Milo is March 30th. Theo is April 2nd.
So if they would be listening, we would like to wish them happy birthday in advance to Milo and Theo. Warm greetings and wishes for both of you from the Himalayan nation of Nepal, the birthplace of Gautam Buddha. Okay. Happy birthday, both of you. Your dad is a legend, and he loves you very much.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. Scott, so what do you wanted to become when you were a kid?
I have to say I was a little aimless. I was a sports person. I played a sport each season. I played tennis in the summer. I played soccer in the fall time, and then I skated. That's my great love, ice skating and playing hockey in the winter. And so, it became quickly clear I was not the best at any of those things. So I moved along with my academics and all. I'm always a great lover of music and sort of the arts. So again, I didn't have any real hard plans and any fixed idea about who I would become and what I would do when I became an adult. But I think that those ideas kind of cemented themselves a little bit after I graduated from college. And I took a job as an assistant sommelier. I kind of, again, trying to wax a little bit philosophical, coming out of college, I thought I had learned some things about music and art. And I thought that I hadn't properly developed my senses of smell and taste. And if I wanted to live sort of a full, rich life, I would want those senses to very much be part of it. And so I fortuitously responded to an ad in Boston at a fancy restaurant, the 34th floor in the financial district of Boston, for an assistant sommelier position. And very quickly, I was astounded at what wine could offer in the way of smell and taste, but in the way of history and finance and geology and chemistry and all these different things. So it became a great focal point for what would be or prove to be continued learning, throughout my life and right up to this very day.
For some of our listeners from across the globe, and obviously we have listeners from Nepal. And for some of you who may be new to the word sommelier, instead of myself, why not we have the expert of wine tell us briefly what a sommelier is for some of our audiences who may be new to this field.
Sure. Well, it's funny how words change over the decades and centuries, sometimes meaning the exact opposite of what they first meant. But the word sommelier, again, is a French word that started out with a slightly different spelling, but went on, but essentially meant that you were taking care of like the animals for some landed gentry. So you're sort of an animal keeper and all. And then as time moved on, came a position that kind of tended to the wine cellar of, again, usually an aristocrat or a relatively wealthy person, the cellar. And sometimes people thought that if you didn't get the chef job, then you became the sommelier, which was sort of a secondary position. But nevertheless, you needed to tend to the bottles in the cellar and manage things. And that's what it came on to mean. People went onto the floor in restaurants where they would garland themselves with the test de vin, the little silver cup, which was traditionally used in the cellar to evaluate the status of a wine in a dimly lit cellar, but came on to be sort of this symbolic accoutrement, if you will, of the person on the floor who would make recommendations to diners in a restaurant. The position, the name word has changed yet again as through the Master Sommelier program. Many people have left the floor and gone on to become beverage directors or accounts in wholesale and retail and so forth. So there's been, even up to this day, a little bit of a tug of war as to exactly what the term sommelier encompasses by way of work. I think you'll remember, Sandeep, when we were on the floor at Janoon, when we opened Janoon together, there were many different hats. We would be clearing tables, we'd be bringing out food, we'd be seating guests, we'd be doing virtually anything that was necessary to make certain that our guests had a good time. And so multiple functions, the best, of course, being talking to guests about wine and making them happy through the service of wine. But we had lots of things to do. But for any of your guests who have seen the second Jason Wise movie, the sommelier movie called In the Bottle, the whole show, movie opens up with kind of that tug of war with Rajat Par essentially saying, if you're not on the floor in a restaurant, you're not a sommelier. And Laura Maniak, who is a master sommelier who's gone on to open several restaurants as an entrepreneur, has gone on to say, well, I don't quite agree with that. And so back and forth we go with the word sort of moving around and morphing into other meanings as time goes on.
Absolutely. So for our audiences, I'm sure you get a little picture of how broad and how the word sommelier has evolved and the roles could be used interchangeably. However, I would highly recommend you to perhaps see the trailer of the sommelier, and then if you'll get a hints about what sommelier is, and maybe you could watch the whole series, was the whole movie rather. I'm sticking with childhood and trying to move things up from there. How you see life when you were a kid versus how you see life now, and how you saw life when you are maybe even younger. Uh, so can you share some perspective on what life is to you? Uh,
Well,
Is it?
I mean, it's one big kind of exploration. You know, I can remember as a child just the excitement of getting on a bus and going to school, and I remember the various schools that I went to. I lived and grew up in Weston, Massachusetts, and went to the public schools there, and they had a series of different schools, the brook, the country, the woodland, and spent first grade and fourth grade in the brook, and second and fifth in the country, and third and sixth in the woodland school. So a rotation it was, and I was very much into sports, so the after-school sports program was important to me. There was nothing I liked better in wintertime than lacing up my skates and going skating and playing hockey on open ice, black ice outdoors at
Hmm.
nighttime sometimes. Sometimes think back to all the different ponds and skating areas that skate in Weston and in the surrounding towns. So those are some of the fond memories I have. And then, of course, you start to get older, and then, junior high and high school becomes a very kind of complex social mixing as people start to
Hmm.
mature. And that becomes another whole, growing up procedure in and of itself. I feel very fortunate to have had mother and father, loving mother and father, and to have grown up in and around other children with, brothers and sisters, and feel quite lucky in that regard.
I could see clearly family is very important for you. Family was very important for you when you were younger. So just share with us one of your fond memory involves you with your dad and your brother and sisters. Is important. That was the follow-up question. What's most important for you? Is family? Is there something else? Is it balance? How do you uh, how do you compare, or how do you put all of those? What's important for you in life with success and maybe prosperity?
Well, I think the most important hope you have at this time is really for your children, and that they can enter society and be productive and be good people, and enjoy their lives. Saying that my has picked up, which is that a mother can only be as happy as her least happy child,
Wow,
and there's a kind of a
this is
stark logic
powerful.
to that, and
Yes, this is
it's kind
powerful.
of
I
true
could
that.
relate to it. Yeah, sorry, please.
So again, you're a cheerleader for your kids. You share with them the wisdom you think you have, or your opinions that you have, to try to have them do better or see life in a more clear and focused way, so that they can thrive and succeed in what are challenging times, or just the difficulty of becoming an adult and somebody who can contribute to society.
So does the purpose of life sort of shifts to seeing your kids happy when you get older, or when you get mature?
Yeah.
Is that a true statement?
Well, I mean,
Am
it's
I?
one of the things that I look for. Again, you try to live your life in such a way that you can live in good health. I mean, health is important to your mental frame of mind, and also you're looking for sort of a full a completeness, because there's just a inevitable balance between your mental health and your physical health, and you want to try to stay positive, and you know be a positive force instead of a negative one. It's very easy to go to wax negative from time to time with whatever it is that you see going on in the world. But I guess your goal is to try to, you're on the planet for a short time, so to try to make the most of it and to try to improve it, I guess you could say.
Well, what do you do personally, Scott, to achieve those things, to achieve that state of balance, keep yourself mentally and physically fit and healthy and positive? What are some of your you have applied throughout your life?
Well, again, I've paid close attention to my health as I've gotten older. uh, to the extent that I feel I'm handing something on to people. I've lived a pretty full life in hospitality and, again, have a great love and respect for wine, which has kept me curious and, intellectually curious. And now over the past 10 years, I've basically, handed on a lot of that information through my classes to people who will go on to use it in different ways. It's one of the conceits of my program is that people's lives are, irreversibly changed as they have for 10 weeks gone on to pay much more attention to smell and taste and have learned a language to talk about and appreciate wine. So that is the way in which I think I've been able to contribute in people's education. And I just try to live a balanced life. Try to get my exercise. I do a tremendous amount of reading, and I think that helps make my program richer, because oftentimes I'm bringing things in that aren't directly related to wine, but they're kind of corollaries or slightly different ways to think about things, all really in the name of education.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you was, I really wanted to know one of your favorite book, because I do not necessarily ask this question to everybody, but I know you are an avid reader and you have like a lot of favorite books. But can you tell us some of your favorite books, perhaps? Maybe every genre.
Yeah, well, I'll give you one, one fiction and one non-fiction. Again, I'm concerned with the world becoming a better place, and I've basically read through the books of James Baldwin recently as my fictional accounts. As the world is changing so quickly in technology, become very concerned with the ways to which it's being put to use. And the most recent important nonfiction book that I've read, a Harvard professor, a woman named Shoshana Zuboff, who wrote a book called The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. And that's one of the more known books with its ramifications and implications and all that I've read of late. So fiction and nonfiction, that's where my head is at these days.
We have James Baldwin, and we have The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, right?
The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, Shoshana Zuboff.
Thank you very much. Scott, also, before I dive into this, I just find out with the conversation with Scott a little before the actual podcast, Scott lost his father-in-law because of this COVID pandemic has taught the human, it's going to be in the human history, and we have lost so many lives. And I want to offer my sincere condolences to Scott and his wife Melanie and all the families who are affected by the unfortunate demise of Scott's father-in-law. This said, we also wanted to know if you may could share with us one of the example of the challenges or a challenge you faced in your lifetime, and how it shaped you as a person, how you overcome them, how you move forward. You can pick any experiences or an experience or an incident in your life.
Well, I think the big challenge, and again, it was a professional challenge, and it had to do with earning the accreditation that I did, the Master Sommelier accreditation. I wanted to continue to grow personally, and as I think you earlier mentioned, I had an MBA in finance and became a partner at Gotham Bar and Grill for 10 years. And along the way, after some number of years, it was like, well, what will be next for Scott Carney? And I had heard about the Master Sommelier accreditation. And so set my mind as I think I was 35 years old at the time, to do something more, to try to continue achieving. And so what that involved, of course, was I had young children at the time. I had a lot of late nights studying at home. I did regularly with my sales people, because at the time I think I became the 16th person to pass the accreditation in the United States. There were no tasting groups, as there now are routinely today, as people aspire to the same accreditation. So it was sort of a singular effort that I did, and I dedicated a lot of time to it to try to take yet another step up and earn something, my appreciation and love of wine. And so I did not pass it the first time around. The tasting first time around at the Doubletree Inn in Monterey back in 1990. And then I had to, actually in 1991, March of 1991, and I had to return to the Dorchester Hotel in London 9 months later, in I think November of that year, to capture the other two pieces, the service or hospitality piece of the accreditation and the theory. And so those were distinct challenges, and I was, so happy to have put the work in and to have it realized in the form of the Master Sommelier accreditation.
Remember, it's a long time ago, but do you remember like how you felt? Was it the sense of like when you passed the tasting for the first time, but when you passed the other portions, was there any distinct feeling of I'm not sure, finding the right word. I don't want to say hopelessness, but like.
Well, I was disappointed,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And I recognized that I hadn't met the standard. I had made a tactical mistake in the service that really humbled me, and I think made me a little less mentally ready for the theory exam. I thought I should have passed the theory exam on the first try, but I think I was shaken by, I guess, my own conceits that I could do the whole thing at once, which is very, very rare. So when the practical portion of the exam did not go as I had hoped, I was disappointed for sure. And I say not quite as mentally sharp as I would have wanted to be for the following day's theory exam.
Mm-hmm. Also, Scott, since you are here, this is we're incredibly lucky to have you in our episode. I want to take this moment to ask a question about wine. How you see wine, not wine for you? What is it? What kind of role it takes? It takes in your life. How you which may or may not be technical.
Yes. Well, I mean, obviously, it is a source of enjoyment and fascination. I do adopt the kind of sensibility that it is so well enjoyed in the company of food, and that there is actually a synergy that can be realized between wine and food. But wine is just kind of magical. You open up the cork or undo the screw cap, and you just kind of never know what's in there. And I'm a big believer that it's a sort of a living thing, and that surprise you. And and what is so remarkable is that it can live sort of a lifetime in a lifespan, much like a human being, which is to say that some of the great wines will go out 60, 70, 80 years and be alive and well if they've been properly stored, and be some of the wildest stuff that you might ever taste, flavors you've never really experienced. Every wine has the capability of doing something special, and while not all wines are meant to age, there are even very modest wines that, when sort of drunk in the right place at the right time, with the right people and all, can make for real magic.
Thank you so much. We are towards the end of our podcast. Point. It's like a tradition of our show. What would be one thing you would recommend from your point of view for our audiences to get into, our listeners to get into, and maybe one thing they should get out of as quick as they can?
Uh, well, that's a little kind of tricky. I don't know your audience, but again, you always try to find, your better self, and I think you always want to work towards your better self. There are certain, books that talk about your higher and your lower self, and I think it's always a continuous battle to try to manifest your better halves and to hold in check the the weaker parts of you about which you're less proud. And so that's the way I would put it.
I learned so much from inviting guests and some of the things you said. Uh, Very profound. And surely, just like all other audiences, I'm my own audience of my own show. So that's amazing. Is there anything I missed, Scott? I could talk to you continuously forever, but you have a busy schedule. I'm so grateful that despite of everything, you you came into the show. It's gonna be this is amazing for me. Anything you wanna say to whoever may be listening down the road? How to be happy? What happiness is? Anything did I miss?
No, I mean, it's a frame of mind. I think you just have to remind yourself that you're not here for a very long time, so you don't want to squander the gift, of life.
Profound. Once again, thank you so much, Scott. Thank you so much for coming in. Best wishes for you and your family. Again, happy birthday to your amazing kids. On the record, we like to have you in Nepal one of these days, whenever things gonna work for you.
We'd like nothing more. It would be just incredible to see you in Nepal and see your